Great, so I think we've got our first speaker, Aurélien. If you would like to start, that would be great.
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak in your conference. If that's okay, I will share my screen for a few slides. Just to tell you very quickly who I am. I'm Aurélien Descamps. I'm the co-founder of an initiative called Studenten that I'm going to talk about. I'm a former academics. I've been an academics for about 15 years. Mainly leveraging my academic position to advocate for the integration of sustainability in higher education and beyond in systems and organization. And this is in that context that I created Studenten as a vehicle to accelerate this integration of sustainability. So I recently left my academic position to really dedicate 100% of my time and energy to this initiative that I'm going to talk about today. So if you allow me just to quickly share the slides, and then I think we're okay.
I think you should be able to share the slides. Does that work?
Yes, it seems to work. Please let me know if it's not, but I think you may be able to see the slides. So
we can see the slides. Thank you.
Thank you. So as I was mentioning, I'm the co-founder of Studenten, which is an international initiative that we created a few years ago with one major objective. We are obsessed by the fact that we want to make sustainability the new mainstream, and we are working towards sustainability literacy. So this is really the goal of Studenten, is to make sustainability literacy the new mainstream. What drives us are core beliefs that we have. First, we acknowledge that most of sustainability issues that we are facing today come from human decision, often taken in a professional context, and quite often by well-trained, skilled people. Most of them hold a degree from higher education, for example, but collectively, we are taking decisions that are accelerating climate crisis and sustainability crisis as a whole. So we want to act. We want to act on that. We also believe that most of those people are just like you and me. You know, nobody really wants to destroy the planet, but probably few cynical people. But most of the people, they are just like you and me. They have their expectation, their aspiration, but they were not sufficiently trained or exposed to sustainability awareness, knowledge, training, skills, mindset, and so on and so forth. So we really want to bridge this gap, and we know that in order to bridge this gap, education plays a key role, of course, but education needs transformation. We need to transform education and higher education as it is if we want to address those challenges. And in that context, of course, student networks and collectives are really powerful and crucial leverages in order to transform education toward sustainability. So this is really what we want to achieve with Studenten. Our vision is that if we want to have a sustainable world, students, young people, and learners as a whole need to be empowered, to be more trained toward those knowledge, skills, and mindset to create a better world and a more sustainable world. So this is why we have created Studenten. We have started with engagement tools. We have a set of online engagement tools that are displayed on our platform, mainly to empower educators and learners towards sustainability. So we have an awareness test, for example, that has been taken by 250,000 people worldwide. We have 3 UN accreditation. We are quite proud of what we have done so far, but we are also very aware that it's not enough. Far from it, and we really want to move faster now. This is why we have created task, the assessment of sustainability knowledge, which will be released this year with a clear objective. We want to reset the standard in terms of sustainability knowledge. We want to have an online certificate that will make sure that regardless of your degree, regardless of your job, of your context, of your activity sector, anyone who will take a decision in his or her life should have at least a minimum level of knowledge on sustainability to be able to understand the challenges and what we are talking about, and to be able to link it with what you are doing on a daily basis in a professional or a personal context. So this is what this is what we are launching, this year. Task is meant to be a radical new online certificate that should be used by university, by organization, by employer, to make sure that we raise the standard in terms of sustainability knowledge. The scope of this certificate is building on Kate Raworth's donut rationale. So this certificate wants to make sure that anyone knows about the planet boundaries, that there are planet boundaries, they are all interlinked, and they have systemic impact on each other's, but you have also social foundation that we want to make to have a safe and just space for humanity. And humanity is currently standing in between those social foundation and those planet boundaries. So everything that we do, every systems made by humans should consider at the same time planet boundaries, social foundation, and their multiple interlinkages. So this is what we want to achieve with Task in order to make sure that we build this common knowledge for sustainability. We build this common knowledge base that anyone should have in order to speak the same language when it comes to sustainability. And of course, your voice and advocacy and everything that you are doing, especially as a student collective, is crucial in order to push with us for curriculum change, for transforming education, and for a faster, better integration of sustainability in education as a whole. So this is our ambition for Task, is really to create a new standard. And for that purpose, we know we need three things. One, we need a robust tool. So we have worked, and I can answer to question if you have, with a task force, researcher, practitioner, academics, to build a robust tool, a relevant tool for stakeholders, including you as a student organization and network, and a tool that is massively used. So this is why we are campaigning at the moment really strongly for university. And of course, you have a role to play for universities, but also for employers to integrate this new standard. So my main message today, in order to finish this quick presentation, is really a call for action. I'm calling you to join this movement. This movement is not only Sulitest movement, of course. We are just a vehicle and a tool, among others, to accelerate this global movement for change maker and for shifting the system toward a more sustainable world. We want to help building this global community by putting the foundation in terms of knowledge and awareness on sustainability with this new online certificate to have more informed, committed, and empowered students, graduate, and professional toward sustainability. So concretely, how does it work? We are conducting a big pilot for Task. Task will be released next January in 2023, but we are conducting a big pilot, end of October. And for that, we are reaching to a lot of stakeholders, including student networks and organizations, at the same time to test the tool, to see what what does it look like, how robust it is, and what it does, but also to prepare the foundation of a global standard that should be used worldwide. So for that, we are proposing to test this future assessment tool, and for all the test taker that will test the pilot late October, you will receive a free voucher in order to take the real certificate, the actual certificate, when it will be released in 2023. So my main message is join us, help us spread the word and spread the movement. Be part of this movement to really reset the standard to mainstream sustainability literacy and knowledge, and be the change maker that drive change in education for a sustainable future. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Aurélien, for giving that presentation. We're really honoured that you started our conference off for day 2. Does anyone have any comments or questions that they'd like to ask following that? I think if we don't have any straight away, just because we want to try and keep to time, yeah, thank you again for speaking. But I think we'll move on to the climate students movement to talk about their climate action ranking. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and have a great conference and discussion.
Thanks. So Isha, are we sharing the PowerPoint for the next one? I think so.
I think they have their own PowerPoint and sharing.
Yes, we do. And I will try to share it. If you give me a second, I'll just have to find the correct one. There we go. Okay. Can you see the presentation now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So yeah, nice presentation. Now I'm Theo from the Climate Students, Sweden. We call ourselves Klimatstudenterna, and I'm here with Rosanna and Hanna, and we will present together our project called the Climate Action Ranking. And the Climate Action Ranking was, if I'm not mistaken, the first project of climate students, which initiated the whole movement. And therefore is kind of the basis of the climate students movement. So this is kind of how it all started out. The ranking was an idea based on a frustration that the universities taught a lot about climate change, but they didn't follow their own teaching. So there was this idea that the Swedish universities have a unique role, both some symbolic and practical, in the climate transition. And symbolically in that they represent like the future knowledge, and they present and research climate change, and practical because they can show like how transition is possible, and they educate the future stakeholders in society. So the climate students started up in Sweden in 2018, and in 2019 the Swedish government tightened the requirements for the higher education institutions to reduce their negative impact and to cut their direct emissions. And the same year there was something called the Climate Framework that started from 2 universities in Sweden called the KTH and the Chalmers University. And they created this framework for other universities to sign if they wanted to agree upon reducing their direct emissions and in line with the Paris Agreement to reach the 1.5 degree target. But since this is kind of voluntary, there's no body that follows up this work, and no governmental body especially. So it can be, even though it's stated quite clearly, the goal, it can be quite vague in how to reach it. And it's voluntary if you want to sign up. But the idea was then that there are 2 things that motivate universities. and those are rankings and search pressures. So by making climate action visible to the public and to new students, we thought that the university could start to prioritize the climate action. And by doing a public ranking, this would force them to live up to their own targets that they signed, and make, I don't want to call it a public shaming, but public motivation to to follow their own goals. So climate action was thought of, when it started, it wasn't very clear that it was going to be a ranking or how it would look. It was more an idea of creating a competition and showing it publicly to evaluate and compare different universities. And first off, the climate students had a meeting with the Environmental Protection Agency, which is a governmental body in Sweden, to see what kind of data that the universities provided to the Environmental Protection Agency and what was lacking. And we found out that there was a lot of data lacking because it's not regulated, and it's not, the universities are by law not forced to send in all of their data. So the lack of data is that the universities can kind of choose what they want to send in and what they want to make public. And this makes it very, very hard for anyone to compare different universities and their emissions and to create an evaluation. So there was first an idea of, okay, if this is the case, how can we compare them? Maybe we could have a jury, which would be based on different scientists and researchers and perhaps students that would go through the university's websites and their emissions that they reported to the Environmental Protection Agency, and compare these with their set goals and make a listing out of these and set kind of scores for how well they responded and how well they performed. But it was quickly realized that this would be a lot of work, like way too much work, to be like practically possible to do. So in order to make it like less work for the organization, and also to make the universities more of a active participant, it was decided to make a survey instead. And by making a survey, we could send out the survey to all the universities, and they could choose what they wanted to present, and therefore they couldn't also complain afterwards that we misjudged the data because they sent in the data to us. And we could summarize these and create a kind of ranking based on different criteria to present to the public. But this has been a journey, yeah. So I believe Hanna.
Yes. So since the ranking was started, it has developed a lot. And as you can see on the pictures, the graphic has changed, but also, of course, parts of the method. And it's particularly the difference between the method 2021 and this year's method that has been the largest or biggest difference. And it has been because the project group have had much contact with the universities and higher education institutions, but also researchers at the universities to get advice on how we could design the best possible ranking. But the major change in the method was that one of the main categories was replaced by another. Could you change slide? Thank you. So in previous years, the ranking was covered by 4 categories, and these was CO2 emissions per annual employee, decrease in CO2 emissions the last year per annual employee, ambition, climate goals and action plans, but also best measurement of total emissions. But after the change this year, the last category was replaced by goal achievement. And this was to encourage the universities to not only set ambitious goals, but actually follow them up and present good goal achievement. And as Theo said, the ranking is based on a survey, and how the ranking is done in short is that the project group works out a method that includes making a questionnaire and a scoring system. And when the scoring system and the questionnaire is designed, the questionnaire is sent out to the universities. And when we have received the responses, we use the responses from the questionnaire together with the scoring method to rank the universities. And alongside this, we also write a report of the work to strengthen the credibility of the ranking, and so everyone can follow how we did it. And when all the universities are ranked, we have the results. We make a graphic and complete the report, and then we publish it, and also make a press release to try to get it out in the media, but also in student magazines. So the reason why we do not go into so much detail about our method is because it's constantly developing, and it's not a perfect method. There are always areas that could be improved, but however, we think it's a really good project, and some reasons why we think this is, and why you should consider making a ranking is because universities want good public relations, and a ranking, we believe a ranking is a good way to give the universities incentive to perform better in their climate work. And it's also a concrete way to show them important areas within their climate work. And we also think it's a good way to put pressure on the universities that they should measure their emissions and have goals and action plans for this. And also one more point is that it's a really educational project, and it's a great opportunity to network both with universities, but also researchers and other parts involved in the project.
But you still have to, hi, I'm Rosanna, by the way. When making the ranking, there are some things you have to consider, since it's a pretty long process. And the first thing is to have a plan from the beginning, a pretty long-term plan from when are the most intense periods, and when can you relax a little bit, as well as to make the survey shorter and more purposeful for scoring, because it depends on who the university picks to fill out the survey, but it has to be easily understandable and the right person has to answer. And we would rather go for quality rather than quantity. So if you make it shorter, then they can give more explained responses and etc. And also to make the emissions criteria based on what is feasible to emit, because there are some who choose net zero and some who choose zero, and there are always circumstances around different goal settings. So make some emissions criteria based on what is feasible, because not all of them are going to be able to change, like energy sources, etc. So look at what is already around and try to base it on that, as well as make a communications plan, because when going out with a press release and posting on different media sources, it is not going to be just to post it. You need to make sure that you know who to send it to, have email lists and such. So planning is really at the root of a project like this, especially since you're in contact with governmental bodies and other important actors, which might and planning gives you a better sort of relation to them and makes you look better, essentially. And also take policies into account, not only national ones, but the ones that are at the specific universities too. What do they have to refer themselves to, and what are their rules, to make sure that it is a fair evaluation. And make the final report more detailed, just to show that you have made a sincere and proper ranking, and not something that is vague, since the climate movement often is criticized for being vague, or more of a movement that is about changing, but not about changing into something specific. So make sure that you have a detailed report on specific solutions, because it's very appreciated and it helps universities and other bigger actors to know how to change and what to change. Like concrete goals. Flight emissions, for example, are something very concrete. And also give them a lot of time to answer the survey, not just because they might be busy, so to say, but you have to make sure that the right person answers the survey. If they just assign someone who doesn't have sustainability knowledge or doesn't have any insight into the plans, then you might end up with a worse and less credible result. So give a lot of time to answer the survey and be clear about what you want. And lastly, rank investments, because universities, as any actor really, make investments, and usually they're not as public as many other actions they might take, and they're very important for what like future development of not just the universities, but the things they choose to support, so to say. So try to find like hidden emissions that might be more indirect than direct. And also, just to give a bit of a precaution, it's pretty difficult to create a trustworthy ranking, since many people measure in different ways. The term sustainability is very vague and broad as it is, so make sure that you have maybe a proper definition or be clear in your language, and try to be as specific in your sources and everything as you possibly can. And excuse our language, but you will receive a lot of shit from universities. Some of them will not be happy with how they were ranked, and some might not take you seriously because you're students. So be prepared to receive some backlash, but backlash is good too. That means that you've made an impact in some way, to a certain degree at least. And try to get feedback from researchers and other stakeholders within the sustainability movement when establishing the method, just to make sure that you choose some sort of, I don't know what you would call that, you choose something that is actually possible to measure, for example, and that you measure it in a way that is accurate, because just you know that they know more than you do, and show that you have taken support from these and that you have scientific background and scientific support for the ranking, as it'll make not only the universities want to cooperate with you more, but it also makes the ranking way more credible. And try to get support from different departments, like governmental departments, when creating the surveys. For example, we used help from the Environmental Protection Agency, and that also gives your ranking way more credibility than if it is a smaller cooperation score, so to say. So that was our ranking. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions or you want to know more about how to make one, like Hannah said, it's we didn't go much into detail about the method, but if you want to know something, then you have our email address here. And yeah, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much, Thea, Rosanna and Hannah, for your presentation. Some really good advice, I think, for groups starting out with their ranking. How we're going to do questions for the three climate ranking speakers is we'll take them after everyone's spoken. So if you've got any questions, if you just hold on to them or put them in the chat, and then we'll address them all together. But I think we're going to invite our next speaker. So we've got speakers from the Sustainabul campaign. I think you might both be here. Yeah.
Yeah, that will be me. Do you hear me properly?
Yeah, we do. Do you have your presentation to share, or we?
Yeah, I will try to do that now. Let me see.
We see it, but I think you're on mute.
I get the notification that I can't share and speak at the same time, which is weird. Let me try again. Oh, wait, it's like this. Yeah.
Maybe you can send the PowerPoint to me and I can share it.
Yeah, let's do that. That will be the quickest. Oh, shit. That will be the quickest parts.
Or if that doesn't work, we can always share it as well.
Yeah, I just sent it to Lucas via WhatsApp. So
If it's going to take some time, maybe what we can do is we can have Jack from People and Planet go first, and then maybe the group go afterwards. Do you think that would work as well?
Sure, should be fine. Got it downloaded
Yep.
now, so I can also just get it up here in a second.
Okay, then.
I'm happy to do that if necessary.
Give me 5 seconds and I've got it.
Okay.
Okay, no worries.
Say that. Very sorry, it seems my PowerPoint is not loading, so it might be better to hand the floor to the next speaker.
Okay, so maybe we can have Jack go first then, and then we will come back to you, and hopefully the PowerPoint loads. If not, you can send it to our email also if it still doesn't work, and I can share as well.
Sound good?
Okay. So hi guys, can you hear me okay? Could you just give me a thumbs up or something if you can? Yeah, we're good. Okay, great. So yeah, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this talk. It's a real honor, and it's lovely to see well, so many young people interested in, well, sustainability primarily, but second, you know, doing rankings and trying to put pressure and trying to campaign in their own countries and to their own institutions. I think it's fantastic to see. So my presentation today, I'm going to talk about the history of University League, how we got started and how we work a little bit. And I've chosen some of my top tips that I would give anyone who's trying to start a university ranking. But I have many more. I could talk for an hour on this. So I want you to, I'm going to give my email at the end, but I want you to know that I'm fully available for anyone who is trying to start a ranking. I'll be very willing to help. Yeah, so please don't hesitate to send me a message. But anyway, I'll get to it. So we've got lots of time for questions and things like that. So the People and Planet University League, we run in the UK. We've been running since 2007. Apparently this was a PhD idea. So back in 2007, the conversation around sustainability was about being green, but it was very much focused on individual action. You know, make sure you recycle, turn the lights off when you leave a room, don't have the tap on when you brush your teeth, things like this. But the person who did this PhD thesis wanted to go a little deeper and get behind what does the planet really need? Is the conversation around sustainability going far enough? So they developed the People and Planet University League initially with 4 criteria of assessment, which were 4 different sections, 4 different ways to assess the sustainability of a university. Over the years, naturally, we have added sections, and we now have 14. So we have quite a broad definition of sustainability because the different criteria of assessment that we use are quite broad. So just to give you an overview of some. So we take environmental data, which is about 45% of our ranking, which is waste. So we look at how much of it is recycled or sent to landfill, for example. We look at water reduction. So we do calculations on how much water per person is being used and if that is being reduced. We look at carbon reduction, which is a very important one. And we also look at energy sources, so where universities are getting their energy from. We look at what percentage of their energy comes from green sources and so on. So we also have, well, I'll talk about ESD, so Education for Sustainable Development. This is probably the core function of a university, isn't it, to educate? So we look at the way that universities are integrating ESD into their curricula, but we also look at the university environment in itself. So for example, we also have sustainable food. We look at the university's procurement of food. We look at the food that's being sold on campus, whether or not they have an accreditation from a sustainable food agency that we have a few of in the UK. But I actually wrote this down during the previous presentation, symbolic and practical, because I thought that, that I really liked your words there. So a lot of our rankings are, sorry, a lot of our criteria of assessment, excuse me, are symbolic. Okay, so what we talk about is removing social license. What do we mean by that? Where universities have relationships with the fossil fuel industry, for example, through their investments, many universities have endowments. They have money that they want to invest, and fossil fuel industry for years has been an excellent investment. If you put your money in, you're likely going to make a profit. So it's very safe. Universities have been doing this for years. Another one that we've started approaching more recently is recruitment. So universities also are recruitment pipelines for industries. They create professionals. They create people with skills and knowledge to do jobs. And there are a lot of links between universities and the fossil fuel industry that recruit students. We tried to remove that social license by saying universities should end relationships with the fossil fuel industry. This is, in terms of the fossil fuel industry and all the power it has, probably not very significant, but symbolically it is very powerful. When you have universities who represent knowledge, they represent the intelligentsia of society. When they're saying, no, we no longer want to be part of, we no longer want to have associations with the fossil fuel industry, it's symbolically very powerful, and we remove the social license from this industry. In terms of our assessment, we use policy documents that are publicly available. So I always say that the People and Planet University League looks at parts of a university website that probably no one else looks at, which is the quite often fairly long and boring documents related to specific aspects of operations at a university. But we use these as a way of assessment because they are well, publicly available, and also because it promotes transparency if universities state openly and publicly what their policy is. Okay, in the UK, we're very lucky to have the Higher Education Statistics Agency, or HESA, I'll call it from now on. So HESA is a public, well, it's a it's a private entity, but universities are obliged to report certain data to HESA. This is part of their, was a requirement which comes with them being a semi-public organisation. So we're lucky that we have that level of transparency in the UK. Obviously that will change from country to country, but I would say that's a good place to start, is to find out, you know, especially if you're in a country where universities are public organisations, they probably do have some requirement to report data, such as environmental data. So I would say definitely go and research that. So we have 153 universities in the UK, and we have about 75 questions each section. Sorry, for each university, we have about 75 questions across our 14 assessment criteria. So this is a big job, and it produces a very large data set. Okay, so one of the ways that we've discovered as the best way for us to manage such a large task is to train student researchers every summer. And so the summer is great because students aren't at university. They may have finished their course and they're looking to do some experience before they move into the world of work, and this can be a way for them to get that experience. Also, you know, COVID, this, if we can say, post-COVID world, this post-2020 world where we've turned into Zoomers, where everyone is online. This has been something that we have taken advantage of. Before, we used to do assessment together in a room. We would get volunteers to come and travel to Oxford in the UK, whereas now we're able to allow people to work from wherever they want, and also to be flexible in their timetable. So working online has been something which is really useful for us. We have a long-running relationship with The Guardian, and we also get widespread coverage in UK media. It could be local newspapers, it could be student publications. We've got The Guardian. We also find ourselves in industry magazines, so that whether that's publications related to the higher education industry or related to sustainability in general. We consider ourselves to be influential. So in a survey conducted this January in 2022, 69% of universities said that our ranking has a direct impact on policy making and sustainability at their organisation. So we do have evidence that universities pay attention to our ranking, and they see it as a credible assessment of the sustainability of their organisation, and they also aspire to go up the ranking. So I'm going to go into my tips. Excuse me if I'm going too fast, but I want to try and get as much across as possible. So in terms of the assessment methodology that you use in your ranking, you need to be standardized. Okay, so universities are very varied in type. Okay, we have some universities that might specialize in business, some that might specialize in another area, some that might be related to the arts, that might be drama schools or art schools. So you need to try and make sure that all of the questions that you're asking can be applied to all universities. Okay, be objective. So what do I mean by this? So it needs to be some information that that can be that would be identified as the same by two separate parties if needed. Okay, so again, using policy documents are really is a really good way to go. Using publicly available data is really good. I would try and say stay away from opinion. Opinion is subjective, so things like giving students a survey about their opinion of their university would be quite subjective. Okay, so try and stay with the objective as much as possible. Use data that can be publicly verified. This is very important. Okay, I'll explain why. So first of all, check, is there publicly available environmental data in your country? Do you have a HESA, or do you have somewhere where universities need to report their student numbers, or they need to report their energy sources, or they need to report? Just try and use publicly available data if possible. If not, ask universities to make this data public in order to be assessed. Okay, so whether that's making their environmental data public, or just for them to have a publicly available policy on a certain area of their operations. I think this really helps. Why is it important then for data to be publicly available? First of all, it means that universities are being more transparent, which is a secondary benefit in itself. It's good that universities are transparent, okay? Because it means that, well, it makes your job easier, but it also means that other campaigners who want to know about the operations of a university can also benefit. It also removes the possibility of being accused of bias. Where you ask universities to send you the data, i.e. self-reporting, I'm not saying, I mean, it can work, but there's always the possibility that someone can say, you haven't been consistent in your marking. If everything is behind closed doors and not seen, then there's always that possibility of an accusation, okay? When it's publicly available, no one can say that we've marked inconsistently because it's publicly available. Also, it means universities cannot choose, I would use the double negative there, that's, no, that's right, can't choose not to participate, yes, that's fine. So, so it means universities cannot say, we don't want to be in your ranking. Sometimes universities have tried to do that in the past, and well, they still are in the ranking. If they don't want to participate and they don't want to put information online, then they will get a lower score. So they will come out probably towards the bottom of the ranking. Okay, so having the obligation that all of the assessment is based on publicly available data means that universities they can't not be in the ranking. Okay. Give universities a right to reply. Okay, so universities need some to have a say. They need to be able to know their assessment before you make it public. Okay, this is only fair. If you're going to say something about the university in a public arena, then you need to make sure that the university has had an opportunity to say if they disagree with what you're saying, or if you've made a mistake, then there's an opportunity to correct that. So in the University League, we have an appeals window. So we have the assessment, and then we have a part where universities can see our provisional assessments and they can appeal against them. So they can say, you have missed some key information on our website, or they could say, you have incorrectly assessed us on this, and we read it and we say yes or no to their appeal. Okay. Why is this important? Well, it takes away the burden of precision from us. So it means if we publish something and it turns out to be wrong, the universities at least had the opportunity to correct it. If we publish something and the universities have no opportunity to correct, well, then it's our mistake. So it takes away that burden of precision and being 100% correct from us. As I told you, we've got 153 universities, 75 questions. It's a lot of data. Of course, there will be some errors. So the appeals window is very important. It also increases buy-in. So when I talk about buy-in, what I mean is it means that acceptance. Like universities accept our ranking, they respect it, they believe it to be credible. They're more likely to participate in it if they are given access via appeals windows. So get publicity as much as possible. So really think about how you're going to share your data. Like I said, we have a long-running relationship with The Guardian that we're very happy about. It gives us a very wide audience. What platforms will you be able to use? So I think someone else mentioned the environmental agency in Sweden. So that's great. If you can align with another larger, more visible organization, that's a really useful thing. Also, social media is a wonderful free tool, which you can really use to your advantage. It will be more impactful if it is seen widely. Okay, so if more people see the ranking and universities know that people are seeing the ranking, they will care more about their reputation, which means that they will participate more, and they're more likely to want to go up the ranking. When universities want to go up the ranking, they're acting more sustainably. Okay, so this is that's why it's very impactful to have good publicity. Think about your audience. So who do you want to see it? So universities will see it, but universities might think that the ranking is important because students are seeing it. So really try and make sure that you hit your student audience, but also potential students who are making decisions about where to study. So people who are 16 or 17, this is a very, very important audience to try and reach as well. This makes it more impactful if universities know that people who are making decisions about where to study are seeing the ranking. Involve students. I mean, why not? It makes sense. Who is better to assess the sustainability of a university than students themselves, who interact with a university on a daily basis, are the key stakeholders. So as I said before, remote working enables mass participation. So, you know, instead of having, say, a few volunteers of people who are your friends at your university, why not advertise on some platform to all students in your country? And why not have a training day and say, everyone please attend this Zoom session, or you can even film it and then upload it to YouTube so that people can do training asynchronously. And then allow students from the whole country to take part in this assessment, you know, really widen the participation as much as possible. As many students are looking for a bridge between university and work, so, and this can be that, and we're very pleased that many of the people who volunteered with us this summer have already asked us for references because they found work that was related to, in some way, the work they did for us, if that's research or if that's a specific area of sustainability. And yeah, this is my chance to say thank you as well to Isha, who volunteered with us this summer as well. So thank you very much. Yes, I've already said that. Okay, so my final point then is be radical and be ambitious, okay? If you're not going to be, then who will? So I'm just going to give you a couple of points here about ethical investment and ethical careers in recruitment. I was very pleased to hear the Swedish group mentioning ethical investment. This is a big success story for us. So in 2015, we launched a campaign asking universities to divest, to remove their investments from the fossil fuel industry. And at that moment, there were no universities who would divest. Sorry, I tell a lie. The first one was in 2015. That's correct. We're here in 2022. We've got over 100, okay, of 153 universities, okay? So in 2015, that was considered a radical idea. That was considered, universities will not divest their funds from the fossil fuel industry. They make too much money from it. And we are here today with 100 universities divested. So be radical, be ambitious, ask for things that you think might be a little bit crazy, because you never know what can happen. You have a lot of power. Universities listen to you, okay? If you are organized, if you are working in the right way, you can make a lot happen. And then also another example, ethical careers in recruitment. We launched this in March of this year, excuse me. Again, so we're asking universities to cut association in terms of their sending graduates to work, in terms of recruitment. And we're already getting universities who are making this declaration. And we're sure that this is going to go and be another ethical investment that in 5-10 years' time, it's going to be commonplace that universities do not work for the fossil fuel industry. So be radical, be ambitious. Why not? Okay, and that's it. So I'll hand over to the next speaker.
Yeah, thanks, Jack, for your presentation. I think just because we're running a bit behind, we always end up doing this. We'll move straight on to our next speakers. So hopefully, I think we're going to share the PowerPoint this time.
Yeah, I'm sorry, don't know what happened there, but luckily Isha helped me out. So yes, I want to say thank you to the previous speakers, and today I'm Bine. Hi, by the way, and I will tell you a little bit about the Sustainable, our ranking in the Netherlands. I'm here on the board of Studenten voor Morgen together with Lucas. Studenten voor Morgen translated is Students for Tomorrow. Please, the next slide. So Studenten voor Morgen is an organization, a national and international organization, which tries to sustainabilize the higher educational system. So we try to impact both universities as well as University of Applied Sciences. And one of the ways which we are doing that is by networks and projects. And one of our projects is the Sustainable. This year I will be partly organizing the Sustainable together with Floris and Veerle, which you will see in the next slide. And then, yeah, that's us. And then you can continue to the next slide, please. So I mentioned before that we are part of some networks. We're part of both national and international networks. So nationals for professional people who are working in the environmental industry, or maybe you know one of our international networks with this, which is Youth and Environment Europe, and of course, Climate Student Movement. Please, the next slide. And we also have some projects such as Sustainable Studies, which is a platform which helps students to, or stimulates students to make a choice or make a sustainable choice in what to study. And we have Sustainable Student, which is on the right, and that's just a blog post or a website which people can write articles for. So it's more of a lower threshold, but we do try to stimulate youth participation in there as well. So now on to the Sustainable. The Sustainable is a yearly ranking in which we rank 33 higher educational institutions. We rank them in 3 different categories, namely education, research, and policy, and we do this by recruiting certain kind of students, which we call rankers. And these rankers, fill out a questionnaire, and this questionnaire has 17 questions, and we try to have 2 rankers on each questions, which gives us about 34 rankers, but sometimes we want a backup, so we try to aim for 40 rankers each year. First of all, some of the history of the Sustainable. You see here in the middle a picture of the first Sustainable we handed out to Maastricht University, a town in the south of the Netherlands. Back then it was very different from what it was now, because in 2020 the Sustainable got a makeover. Because from 2020 onwards, educational institutions, they were not voluntarily joining anymore, but they were obliged to join. So the 33 biggest educational institutions are now joining each year. And they also included the best practices, which I will be telling you a little bit about more later. And in 2022, that's actually this year, we reached another milestone, and we're now developing the questionnaire again. So we try to take it under a loop, and we will adjust it accordingly to what it asks for now, actually. So please go to the next slide. Yes, so I want to take you through our process of the Sustainable. We end the Sustainable at the end of May this year, but before that there are 5 different phases. The first phase is just a preparation phase in which we recruit the rankers, and so for this year, adjust the questionnaire. Then the first phase, most of the process actually is similar to Jack's ranking, which he told in last presentation, but we don't, or we let the rankers, so we don't, oh, and as well, it's a little bit the same as the ranking from the Scandinavian students as well, but we let the students rank the institutions. So the first round is to gather information, and they will score the educational institutions on one question, so one from the 3 categories. So it's either research, education, or policy. They score these institutions by the documents they find online. And then the second phase is when the educational institutions are allowed to respond to it. So they get a set of feedback, and then they are allowed to submit any other documentation which the rankers might help, which the rankers might not have found in the first place. This does mean that sometimes the documents they submit are not transparent or not for public eye, which is part of the questionnaire as well. So transparency is one of the questions as well. Then the third phase is on the next slide. The third phase, yes. Oh, yes, thank you. The third phase is when the rankers can adjust their scores if they want to. They can see the additional documents the educational institutions have admitted, and then, yeah, higher or lower. Most of the times it's higher the scores. Sometimes the scores stay the same, but it's almost never that the scores get lower. And then the fourth phase is for the educational institutions to check, to do a final check whether they're not allowed to give any more feedback, but they are allowed to see their own scores. And then the final phase is where the most of the work is for us. We're analyzing the data and then writing the benchmark reports and the final report of the Sustainabul, and then we have an awarding ceremony at the end of May, which is always very celebratory and something to look out for. Then this is how the ranking looks. I'm sorry it's in Dutch, but I translated the legend for you on the left-hand side. Most of the points at each category, so the green one, the yellow one, and the blue one, have 110 points, and then there can be scored bonus points when an educational institution submit any best practices or when they make sure that some of their students become rankers, because last year was a struggle when recruiting rankers. And you can see that the points vary, and also most of the educational institutions are very close to the points they get, and as you can see, the educational institution with the least amount of points is scoring very badly. But that's also one of the good things, because if we go to the next slide, we can see the impact that the Sustainabul has made. And the lowest scoring education institution was Christelijke Hogeschool Ede, which is the University of Applied Sciences in a town nearby. And because they have been scoring so low for the past few years, they created a green office. This is one of the education institutions in which that happened, which is actually really cool to know, because of our ranking, because of the Sustainabul, unis are establishing green offices, or unis are creating more jobs, such as a sustainability coordinator in one of the universities of applied sciences in Arnhem and Nijmegen. This actually is a direct impact of the Sustainabul, because they know they've been scoring low for the past years, and when they want to score higher, they do things like that. And we also try to let the unis change any policies, but that's a harder goal to reach, since the policies of universities only change once every 4 years. But when they are changed, they keep some of the Sustainabul's impact and some of the Sustainabul's comments definitely in mind, which is a good thing. Then I would like to briefly touch upon the best practices, which is on the next slide. Yes, so the universities are allowed to submit 3 best practices per round, and one of them can be ranked according to the rest of the best practices. It's really cool to see what the best practices are from each university. And we have about 8 different categories, 3 of which are education, products and funds, and nutrition. And the better the best practices, the higher the points for Sustainabul. I guess this was a brief introduction of the Sustainabul, and if you have any questions, I'm here at the Q&A session, so feel free to put them in the chat or to email me if you have any other questions. Thank you.
Thanks so much for giving that presentation. As you said, I think we'll open the floor up to any questions or comments or any discussion points anyone has for any of our speakers. And if we don't have any at the minute, we can take them and try and share them with the relevant speakers. Isha, are we still having a break, or are we going to move on straight to the next speaker?
Let me just check our current schedule. So I think based on our current schedule, maybe we can have about 3 to 4 minutes of a break, and then we can move on to our next speaker. Does that sound okay?
That sounds good. Yeah, I think, yeah, we'll take 3 or 4 minutes then, and then we'll see you then for, yeah, our next speaker. Sounds good.
Thank you for all the ranking groups to share. So I think it was very interesting to hear everything. And yeah.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for
Yeah, thanks for coming.
It was a pleasure listening to both other projects. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone. Sorry for the relatively short break because we're a little bit short on time. All right, I'm just gonna share my screen. So unfortunately, right now we're going to have a presentation from our coordinators, our campaign coordinators. But unfortunately, because there has been connection issues, so I think there's a blackout in one of the coordinators area, and they are unable to be here, but we do have a recorded version of their presentation. So I'm just going to be playing that recorded version of their presentation. Let me just get it started, and Lucy, please let me know if there is no sound or something.
Hello everyone, my name is Marco Dotto. I am the National Coordinator for Act on Your Climate Science campaign from Tanzania. Today I'm happy to share with you the success of our campaign in Tanzania. Before sharing with you, I want to acclaim Isha for her time, energy, support, motivation, and everything she did to ensure the campaign is successful in Tanzania. Tanzania, like many other developing countries in the world, is vulnerable to the impacts of climate change and variability. Our country has continued to experience the impacts of climate change, such as melting of ice at the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, floods, drought, and sea level rise. So this campaign will bring together young people from higher education institutions to start taking actions in addressing the impacts of climate change. Tanzania campaign coordinators, at the top, it's me, Marco Dotto, and Safia Mohammed. These are national coordinators who were selected to coordinate and organize all the events for the campaign and everything concerning the campaign. Let you know when did the campaign start in Tanzania. The Act on Your Climate Science in Tanzania started on December 2021 when the national campaign coordinators were selected. Before the campaign started in Tanzania, there was a call for national campaign coordinators position. Tanzania students, including me and my fellow coordinator Safia, attended the interview for national campaign coordinator. The coordinators were selected, me and Safia, and after being selected, we managed to start the campaign. Now I'm going to talk about how the Tanzania national campaign started. First of all, after being selected as national coordinators, we started introducing ourselves to our fellow colleagues and university lecturers so that they can be aware of the campaign and know how they are going to support and how they are going to learn it. So after introducing, we started recruiting team members, whereby we shared the link and info about the campaign through social media platforms, especially WhatsApp groups and Instagram. We also we managed to recruit 53 members from 5 colleges and universities of Tanzania. So after recruiting those members, we decided first to discuss about the current status of climate in Tanzania, whereby members were contributing, were providing their pointers and other suggestions about the current status of climate in Tanzania. So we formed campaign committees, whereby within those committees we selected very motivated and active members to be committee leaders. We created social media platforms for campaign updates and information, like Instagram account, which is named as AOYCS_TZ, and Facebook account named as AOYCS Tanzania. We also created a WhatsApp group for discussions. We started preparing the campaign proposal, whereby we were collecting ideas and suggestions from team members, and they had an opportunity to contribute what we have to put in the proposal. So our proposal is already, and it took 2 months to be completed. Within the proposal, we included campaign goals, budget, and time frame. So after having all those preparations about the campaign, we started to act. The first event that we participated is the community cleanup awareness that happened at Stereo Market in Dar es Salaam. We introduced ourselves to show them that there is a student campaign, the Act on Your Climate Science. During the World Environment Day, our team was invited to participate in a beach cleanup event, which happened at Base Beach in Dar es Salaam. When cleaning the beach, we were picking waste into sacks and after picking, the team were given the chance to do waste audit and brand audit, because our team is knowledgeable and aware of waste audit and brand audit. So now I'm going to tell a little bit about waste audit and brand audit. Waste audit is sorting waste items so as to identify waste types, and the brand audit is identifying corporate companies that contribute to that their products contribute to environmental pollution. Also, the team from Sokoine University of Agriculture participated the community cleanup awareness event that happened in Morogoro. So here you can see the picture of our coordinator, Safia, from Sokoine University of Agriculture, and her team members. So they all participated to this very special day in the World Environment Day. Also, apart from the World Environment Day, we also managed to participate in another event of tree planting. So this event happened in Morogoro. So we participated with our partners, My Birthday Tree, and we planted the trees. Here you can see these children carrying trees, and here is our team members who are very active and motivated, and they participated actively on this event. So we know that every action counts. So our action is very important to addressing the impacts of climate change. Now I want to remind you that a single action counts. So once those actions are combined together, they becomes power, and they are enough to change the world. So we need to work together. We need to work in collaboration so as to limit or control this ongoing global warming. So now I'm going to talk about the challenges resulted during the campaign. The first challenge is lack of financial support to run the campaign. We are students, our finance is very limited, so it was difficult for us to organize an event about the campaign because we don't have enough money to buy resources needed for organizing events like buying trees for tree planting campaign and burning of sacks needed for waste picking during the beach cleanup. There was also an unwillingness of fellow colleagues to join the campaign. Some students were not ready to join us, and they rejected to support and join totally to the campaign. Also, we had poor communication poor access to network connection. Also, we didn't have bundles for making communication between us coordinators and our members. Also, we didn't have support from the student organization leaders. As you know that at the university there are organizations which are under the students, so some leaders were not ready to support us in the campaign. Also, another challenge is time limitation. We are the students. Sometimes we use our time in the classes. Plans for next year: launch the campaign nationally, reach 15 colleges and universities in Tanzania to spread the climate student framework, recruit 200 members from all colleges and universities in Tanzania, spread tree planting campaigns in semi-arid regions in Tanzania, Dodoma, Arusha, Singida, Manyara, and Shinyanga, organize beach cleanup campaign in coastal regions, especially Dar es Salaam, reach ministers and parliament. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you all for listening in. I just want to remind you one thing. Plastic is hitting the earth.
Hi, okay, so I think that's the end of our presentation. I see that Marco managed to connect, so he's over here in one of the participants. So maybe if you have any questions, feel free to leave it to him in the chat, or any suggestions, comments, feel free to leave in the chat, and that I guess like you can either understand in the chat or we will like send it over as well. I think now we'll be moving on to the discussion questions quickly, right? Lucy, do you want to maybe do a bit of an introduction for this, and then we will
Yeah, so I guess we're moving on to the last bit of the conference for today, but we thought it would be useful for the participants to kind of engage in a breakout room discussion. So we've got a question: how can you move from a smaller climate interest group to having a wider impact on society or within a university as a starting point? But you can also use the breakout rooms just to network and introduce yourselves to other people that you end up in there with. So yeah, that's the idea. I think we're going to open the breakout rooms for about 15 minutes. And I think there's also a Padlet as well that we're going to send the link to. And if you've got any ideas or follow up from that question, feel free to add it to the Padlet and we'll keep that open while the conference is still live. So I think Isha is in the process of putting everyone into a breakout room, and we'll see you back here in, I think, about 15 minutes. But if you've got any problems, just put, I think you can put you need help in the breakout rooms and we'll come and help you.
just feel free to kind of introduce yourself and then maybe answer the questions if you have anything to comment on it. Okay, I think everyone's back. Yeah, I think if you guys have anything to add, like from your discussions, if you could just jot down some of your ideas into the Padlet later on, please feel free to do that. But I think right now we're moving on to conclude our session today. Let me just quickly share screen. So I think we're just going to conclude with some like opportunities and call to action like that you can kind of follow up from after today's event with climate students and also with some of our like partners. So I think to start off, basically how you have a bit to share about how you can get involved with climate students as an individual. So the first way you can get involved is if you would like to set up like a campaign of your own, like Act on Your Climate Science campaign. And if you would like to do that and be part, or if you like to do that, or if you'd like to find out more about, for example, Green Office, you can join our introductory event for these two campaigns that's happening this Wednesday and Saturday. So I think you can just choose one of the two if you're interested in that. The second possibility is to join our Climate Students Movement Board. So that's the international board that me and Lucy are part of. And you'll be able to basically kind of like work with like our international activities and plan like strategies and activities, events for our members, our coordinators, and also partnering with some of our partner organizations essentially. So we will, in our follow-up email, we'll mention it. And also I think we're going to be posting some things on our social media about that as well. The third possibility is about Sustainability Month. So as an organization, in April, we do a Sustainability Month where we try to engage with like external organizations to plan activities so that to kind of raise awareness about sustainability, maybe in also non-traditional fields like poetry, hackathons, maybe music, things like that. So if you're interested in being part of the committee to plan these activities or to work together with some organizations, then feel free to also kind of drop us an email and we can involve you with the planning. As a group, so as a group, how you can get involved. So if you have a student group, for example, either a national student group or just one student group in your own local university, you can sign up to become a Climate Students Movement member and join us as a group. And you can also get involved if you have a group that would like to kind of help to scale up or activate the campaign in your own country. You can also do that and join the campaign introductory event as well. I think now I'll pass it over to Lucy, who will share about the external opportunities.
Yeah, just for the last bit then, we've got a few external opportunities that we are going to share. So the first one is by ILE, which is the International Education for Sustainability Association, and they're organising an upcoming Youth for Climate Change hackathon. So that will take place on the 21st to the 23rd of October. And for more information or I guess further updates, if you check their social media and website. The second one is the EU Teens for Green. So this is an open call to fund youth-led actions advancing the green transition in EU carbon-intensive regions, and it's covered by the Just Transition Fund. So if this is applicable to your group, if you're interested in kind of submitting a project, we would suggest that you get in contact or look at the social media for this campaign as well. And then I think we've got one or two others. So the next one is a Zoom panel. And it's about the climate emergency and how that intersects with the health emergency. So you can see that they've got all the different time zones there. And again, if you're interested in participating in that, they have an event. So I think we'll send that in follow-up too. And then the last one, oh no, okay, not the last one. So we've got a feedback form. We had one yesterday, but I think we'll put the link in the chat. And it's just from the conference today, and we really appreciate any feedback so we can improve the conferences and other upcoming events. But I think that was everything. So thank you for attending for today. If you've got any questions that you want to ask Isha and myself, we'll be here for a few more minutes. But yeah, thank you for coming today.